Today, we're designing and making a simple 3D printed mini vase for a cactus. This one is inspired by turbines where there's a thin blade swirling around the exterior of a cylinder. To design this project, we'll be using a program called Rhinoceros and start by drawing a circle with a 4-inch diameter. Using the polyline tool, I draw an open rectangle with an 1/8 inch depth and a 1/16 inch width. I move the shape to the perimeter of the circle and make sure that it's centered. Using the Array Circle command, I try several variations with the goal of creating a dense amount of fins around the outside of the circle. When I figured out the final amount and completed the Array command, I offset the circle inwards by a 1/16 of an inch to give thickness to the perimeter. I use the Trim command to remove the lines at the ends of the fins. Next, I work on the overall shape of the planter. For this design, the bottom portion should be curved and reduced in width, but it should also have a smooth transition from the large top to the narrow bottom. With this idea in mind, I extrude the shapes that I drew to a height of 4 inches. To make the fins look like they're rotating around the perimeter, I use the Twist command and rotate the top portion 90 degrees. Using the Taper command, I reduce the width of the base to roughly 2.5 inches while keeping the top of the planter 4 inches wide. This gives it the turbine aesthetic where the fins follow the entire curvature of the cylinder and rotates around it from top to bottom. With the planter design complete, I decided to include a drip tray. It would be a simple one shaped like a bolt with a hexagon head. The overall size came out to 4 inches wide by about 3/8 of an inch tall. I added stubs to the center of the drip tray to keep the planter slightly off the surface and cut holes out of the bottom of the planter so excess water can drain. I exported the design from Rhino as a STL file and imported it into Prusa Slicer where I tested a few settings and saved the G-code for the print to my SD card. I inserted the SD card into my 3D printer and started the printing process. I haven't used my 3D printer in a very long time, so I was curious to see if it would perform the same as it did more than a half year ago. To my surprise, there were no issues with this initial print, which was the drip tray. It came out perfectly and took an hour from start to finish. While printing the actual planter, there were a few issues where the filament didn't properly attach to the printer plate, and in some areas, very thin strands of the filament were left on the exterior of the fins, making it look fuzzy between each one. I think the issue was the speed of the print and the temperature of the environment around the printer. I left the enclosure open so I could record the printing process, which might have let in some colder air into the printing box. Nonetheless, about halfway up from the printer bed, the exterior of the planter was printing perfectly and started to look exactly like the 3D model. Once the print was complete, I removed it from my 3D printer and brought it over to my work table. I brought over my planting soil and transferred it into the planter. Then, I brought over my mini plant and transferred it into the soil. With that, this mini planter is complete. I love the simplicity of this design and the fins spiraling around the perimeter of the planter. These are always fun to make, and if you enjoyed this video, you should check out my other 3D printed products playlist and consider subscribing. I look forward to seeing you again next week.